Well, we're continuing our train tour now. We're heading from York up to Edinburgh, Scotland. Just about a 2.5-hour ride. There's some spectacular scenery along the route from York to Edinburgh, and the trains are extremely comfortable. This is BritRail service at its best, particularly when you're on the Intercity 125 train that goes 125 miles an hour. If you take the slower train, you'll still get there, but it might take you 3.5 hours compared to 2.5 hours on the high-speed train. And there's frequent train service. About every hour, the Intercity leaves York, heading for Edinburgh. Throughout Britain, you've got 15,000 trains every day. It's one of the most extensive rail systems in the world. Arriving, before you know it, in Edinburgh. Many travelers feel this is the most interesting city in all of Great Britain after London. There's many good reasons for feeling that way. The beautiful parks, the fine shops, the great restaurants and pubs. There's a lot of culture here in Edinburgh with the museums, and we'll be seeing quite a bit of it in the next several programs as we have a look around. Passing here the Royal Scottish Academy, and the highest point in the city is occupied by Edinburgh Castle, towering above everything. You see Princess Street in the background, the busy commercial hub, and beside it are the beautiful Princess Street Gardens. Formerly a lake and a swamp drained by the city planners, turned into a beautiful open public park. Edinburgh is really two cities divided by that park. The far side is the old town, and here we're driving through the new town. Well, it's not so new anymore. It was built during the 18th century in the Georgian style of architecture. Here you see classical Georgian facades, rows of townhouses, beautiful stone construction. Quite similar to the city of Bath, Edinburgh's 18th century architecture is perfectly preserved, as is the earlier medieval structures in the old town that we'll be seeing a little bit later in our series. Passing St. Mary's Episcopal Church, built in the Neo-Gothic style amidst this row of Georgian townhouses, we've arrived at the neighborhood of our bed and breakfast. We've picked out the Afton Hotel, which is a typical British townhouse, and it provides a little welcome change from the normal large hotels, and yet it's much more comfortable than a smaller bed and breakfast where the bathroom might be down the hallway. Here at the Hotel Afton, we've got this spacious room with the highest ceiling we've seen. And out in the backyard, there's a lovely and surprising garden that's shared by all of the row houses on the block. The townhouses have no front yards, for the facades come right up to the sidewalk, but behind you'll generally find beautiful green spaces. The red walled breakfast room, and we'd like to know something of the history of this grand old building.
Well, it was built as a private home in 1840. That's when the whole crescent was built. And they came down to this part of the town from the high street because of the overcrowding up there. They were all living in tenements. And it was a family home, a merchant, you know, so he would have plenty of money. And the poor servants would have to take the coal from the cellar and carry it up to the top of the house.
And now you have to do that.
Yes, no, we don't have coal, we have central heating. And it became a hotel at the turn of the century, and it's been a hotel on and off since.
There are several dozen small hotels like this throughout Edinburgh, and very often you'll find the small private park in front of the townhouses, as well as the private gardens behind. In all, it's a fine example of early British town planning. You're bound to hear the music of the pipes when you're in Scotland. During our stay in Edinburgh, we'll be taking you on several tours. There's an open-top bus tour where you'll have beautiful vistas like this with the church and the castle beyond. And there'll be a walking tour we'll bring you on in a future program. For now, we're taking a little reconnaissance down Rose Street. This is the most popular street for pubs and restaurants. Outdoors at lunchtime, indoors in the evening, and there's lots of shops on Rose Street and just a block away on Princess Street. Everything in the Edinburgh Woollen Mill is made in Great Britain, and all of the clothing is made of wool. Most of their sweaters are hand-knit in Scottish homes, so there's a real personal touch to this clothing. They have clothing for men and ladies as well as children, and smaller gift items to bring home as souvenirs for your friends. Behind the Piper stands the Balmoral Hotel. It's one of the great institutions in Edinburgh. The Caledonian is another one of the great hotels at the other end of Princes Street. And you'll find the Sheraton and about a dozen high-quality four-star hotels in this city. Princes Street here is the main commercial avenue of town. It's busy shopping street, lots of buses going up and down, taxis. The main Waverley train station is right here with a nice queue of taxis ready to take you any place you like to go. So you can get around town very easily, and you'll also enjoy walking, for this is a rather compact city, and there's quite a bit to see on every corner. It's a city of culture and entertainment all the year round, and particularly during August there is the famous 3-week Edinburgh Festival, which features over 100 different performances of dance and music and theater. One of the main art forms on display in this town is architecture, ranging from the old castle up on the hill to the medieval town to the new town and some modern buildings as well. It's a city of parks as well as beautiful buildings. This architectural style of the new town is called Georgian because it was developed during the 18th century when England was ruled by King George I, King George II, King George III, and then King George IV. That's right, for 100 years there were 4 different kings named George in control of England. And they did rule over Scotland as well, for it was united with England in 1707 at the beginning of this period. The architectural style of the city evolved in many directions, as you see. One of the most famous is the Neoclassical style of Edinburgh, where it gets its name, the Athens of the North. This looks like a Greek temple, but it's actually the Royal Scottish Academy. And just next to it is the National Gallery of Scotland. This is an amazing collection. It's not a huge museum, but it's large enough certainly that you can wander its corridors for several hours and be deeply enriched by the collections inside. We'll be going in just a moment, but it's also enjoyable to admire the surroundings, and you'll find buskers every place you go in Edinburgh, the city of art and culture. Behind them, the Princes Street Gardens. We're walking on what's called the Mound. It's an artificial earth berm constructed to unite the old town and the new town. And on top of the mound was constructed in 1850 the National Gallery of Scotland. And you can see the price is right. Admission is free. Well, their collections include Italian masters such as Baroque. They have Spanish masters including El Greco and Velázquez, you saw just a moment ago. Flemish painters include Rubens and Rembrandt. Hans Holbein the Younger is represented in here. And it's just a great collection including 2 Raphaels and a Titian. Poussin is also here. You'll find pieces by Renoir and Gauguin and Seurat as well. And there's paintings by Monet, Van Gogh, Degas, and Cézanne, and many antique shops and private galleries and street art you'll find even painted on the sidewalks. Here's a picture of pure ecstasy. They take such good care of them that each dog has had his own ice cream cone. And he's got 4 or more of these big white dogs at home. Samoyeds are some of the most spirited but gentle and well-mannered dogs you can ever find. They're easy to train and they love to perform for their masters. Athens of the North, Edinburgh is a city of neoclassical architecture and high culture. And it's a city with medieval origins dating back to the 12th, 13th, and 14th centuries, especially as shown here in the Old Town. We're crossing over now from the New Town to the Old Town, and you'll see a difference in architectural style. The buildings are packed in more closely together in the Old Town, and it became, in fact, a very crowded residential area. So much so that by the 15th and 16th century it was among the most crowded cities in all of Europe. And thus the New Town was constructed just on the other side of the gardens here. And one of the best ways to learn about the story of Edinburgh is taking a tour in an open-top bus, which we will be doing in a future program. So you'll have to stay tuned to World Traveler. We're on every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, and we'll be coming back to Edinburgh. We'll also be enjoying an extensive walking tour of the New Town and the Old Town as well, conducted by a local guide. And now we'll give you a small taste, a preview of the walking tour as we cruise along the Victoria Terrace. This is a very interesting elevated sidewalk that looks down on Victoria Street, famous for its antique shops. There's also a couple of nice cafes in the neighborhood. These academics enjoying a luncheon break washed down with some nice white wine.